Welcome to Module 2 of CAP046D, Creating and Managing Presentations. In this module, we're going to take a look at the basics of creating and managing presentations and the PowerPoint interface. You're going to learn how to create a presentation, open presentations, and navigate in the user interface. We'll talk about displaying different views in a PowerPoint presentation, and we'll display and edit presentation properties. And then I want you to save and close your presentation, and then you're going to upload it to the Dropbox and Canvas and get credit for your work. This is a quick look at creating presentations. You should also read Chapter 2 in the textbook to reinforce what you see in this video. However, if you follow some of the basic instructions that I present here in this video and the reading, you should be able to complete the lab, which is extremely simple. And so I have PowerPoint open right now, and I'm working on the Mac because what we see in the reading in the textbook for PowerPoint is mostly for Windows, and Microsoft has done a pretty good job of creating software enhancements to PowerPoint so that there's a seamless integration or consistent user experience and user interface between Windows and PowerPoint on the Mac. And now about 50% of you have Macs, both desktop and laptop, and the other 50% have Windows machines. In fact, in some of my classes, a majority of the students are working on Macs. So I'm going to switch between the Mac and the PC during my demos. Next week I'll be on the PC. And when we need to do more complex things that I know are very specific to Windows, features that are only offered in Windows will be in the PC, and I'll provide you an alternative for how to accomplish those tasks on the Mac, although it's not my intention to completely support the Mac. But for these beginning modules, there's very little difference in what you will see. In creating a presentation, as you can see right now, I have a presentation open. And so creating a presentation is pretty straightforward. Before you even create a presentation, there's some work to do up front, like think about who's your target audience, what's the goal of your presentation, what message are you trying to convey, what visuals and text will help convey that message. And then once you've done some of that upfront work, most of what you're going to do is you're going to launch PowerPoint, or you'll be working in PowerPoint. And so if we were to start PowerPoint fresh, and we have a couple of options to create and edit presentations. If we click File on the menu bar and select New Presentation, we can create a new presentation. And what that does is it opens a new window in PowerPoint. And what I'm going to do from this point on is close this. And what you're going to see is a new blank presentation. And we're going to come back to this, and we'll talk more about the user interface in PowerPoint and working with this blank presentation. We can also select File and New from Template. And when we do that, PowerPoint opens this beautiful template gallery that we can select from. And we can select any one of these to use for a new presentation, or we can find recent presentations that we've been working on, or those that are shared with us on Office 365 or SharePoint. Like here we see a list of presentations, PowerPoint presentations that were shared with me in my consultancy at Performance Instruction. Or you can open and search for presentations that are either on your personal OneDrive or multiple drives. So you see I have one drive that's personal, and then I have one for my consultancy. Yes, I do some consulting so I can afford to be a teacher. And I can also browse for PowerPoint presentations on my Mac. So just for review, There are basically two ways for us to view and to create a new presentation. Should I say? There's actually three. We can create a new blank presentation like we did here, or we can create a presentation from a template, in which case we're given access to a template gallery to utilize. There are some differences in the gallery on the Mac versus the PC, but generally they're the same. If we want to use any of these templates, we'd simply select this layout, and what we'll find is when we click create, then this thing is populated with a title slide and the theme is applied, and the theme includes colors, fonts, and styles, and we'll talk about some more in later presentations. So you can create a new presentation from a blank presentation, a template, and from content templates that are available on the Office website, but then you'd have to go to Office website and you could download those. There is a way that we can get to it from PowerPoint, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. For today, what we're going to do is we're going to stick with the old plain Jane presentation. And if you follow along with me and create this presentation with me and then save your work, you can submit it to the Dropbox and you will have completed the lab. So it's pretty straightforward. So you can watch the video and then come back to it, turn on PowerPoint, and follow along with me. So right now we have a blank presentation, but let's take a look at the layout of PowerPoint. Like most applications, it has a menu bar which is at the top, and each of these options on the menu, when you click them, a cascading menu opens, and they have different options like we saw a little bit earlier. Things like saving, save as a template, which we'll talk about, exporting. You can share your presentation, etc., password protect it. You can edit, view different things in the presentation, and some of these options are in duplicate and are in duplicate on the menu bar that are actually built into PowerPoint. So some of us who are old school PowerPoint users, in the old days we used these menus a lot. But with the new version of PowerPoint, the PowerPoint that we've been living with now since roughly 2000, we don't have to rely so much on the menu bar. So we can actually rely mostly on the options that are built into PowerPoint. So when we look at the lay of the land, we have the menu bar at the top. We have this autosave button, these quick access buttons like the home button. Like if we click this, this takes us, it opens up that gallery again. We can save, undo, redo, and we can even add more options, quick access options on this bar here. This area of the screen is called the ribbon. This area is called the ribbon. And the ribbon is a very common area and portion of the user interface in Microsoft Office products. It appears in Microsoft Word as well as Excel and PowerPoint. But the ribbon can be a plus and a positive thing, but it can also be a curse because the ribbon is very much contextual. So we can see here that the ribbon has different tabs. Like right now we're on the Home tab. If I click Insert, then it shows me options on the Insert tab. And these tabs are essentially named based on the features that they provide. Like for example, if I click on the Drawing tab, then there are tools that help me draw. If I click on Design, then I have options to change the design or theme that I utilize in or for this presentation. And some of these you can see are what we saw when we created a new presentation from a template. And so on the Design tab, you get a really good look at the theming properties in PowerPoint, which include colors, these color schemes, and fonts. If I click Transitions, that gives us options to transition from one slide to the other. Animations, which are really cool and we'll get to later in the course, help us to create fancy animations. And then the slideshow tools, which help us see our presentation from the view that the users might see it, or the audience might see it, or slideshow layout so that you can rehearse your slideshow so you look polished before you do your presentation. The review tab, which you might use when to have people who might be working with you to co-present. And then view, which is really an important tab, kind of gets pushed to the background and doesn't get a lot of press. But in the view tab, we can access different options and views in PowerPoint. We're going to talk about these views that like the normal, the outline view, the layout, the slide sorter view, which I call the waffle button, page notes, etc. And rules and guides. And these new tabs, you won't have these last like 3 tabs in your instance of PowerPoint because I actually created them. And so they're there in my instance of PowerPoint. There is a way to turn on new tabs. It's an advanced thing. We'll talk about it before we wrap up the course. And you can add features that are built into PowerPoint to those tabs that you utilize and are specific just to your workflow. Like for example, a slideshow in a window. Now, the features, and if you have Adobe Acrobat, it might plug in Acrobat. This is the Tell Me button, which is kind of like help. The default features that are built into the ribbon and the options is probably only about 50% of all the options and features that are available in PowerPoint. There's a multitude of other options that you might find useful or that you may not find useful. We'll talk later about how to enable those features and how they might help you. And so we've taken a look at the ribbon. One thing that's difficult about the ribbon, if we click the Insert tab, what does this Insert tab do for us? Well, it lets us insert things like a new slide. Like if we wanted to insert a new slide, we could click this drop down arrow and it shows us the different types of slides: slides, title and content, section header. Each of these are based on the slide template that you're currently using. And let's say we want to add a title and content slide. We click on it and then it's added into PowerPoint and we can see that that layout is there. Let's go back to this first slide, and continue talking about this Insert tab. You can see there are all kinds of features here. We're going to dive into them some more next week, but they're grouped by the tasks that they allow you to accomplish. For example, this is the picture group where we can insert pictures or take screenshots. This is the table group. There's just one thing here. Get add-ins, which are advanced features that won't be covered in this class. This is our drawing group is what I call it. And I'm not big on technical terms because I actually teach upwards of 30 different kinds of software. So I know how to use PowerPoint very well, but the technical terms, you might catch me misusing it here and there. But I would call this basically inserting drawing and information infographics. And although there are drawing tools that are available. And then you can see other groups. So these buttons are grouped by how you might logically use them in the ribbon. But here's a difficulty in the ribbon. If we reduce the screen size, then some of these features disappear. And it took a while for that to happen here on the Mac. And you're never going to work with a screen this small. But depending on the resolution of your monitor, the size of the monitor that you're using, you might see these buttons appear and disappear. And you'll find yourself clicking all over the place, like, oh, well, where was that button? I knew there was a way to look at the color schemes. And what about transitions? Well, wait a minute, that's only a third of the transitions. And so if that becomes a problem, then just go ahead and maximize your screen so that you can see the presentation at full screen. Speaking of screens, brings me to another point. There are two resolutions that PowerPoint that you can utilize in a PowerPoint presentation. The most common and popular one for widescreen monitors that it's in use today is the 16 by 9 ratio. 16 by 9 ratio. Most digital video, when we look at a screen, like if you're watching HD at home, HD videos, that video is displayed at 16 by 9. So basically, if you look at a ratio of the width to to the height of the screen, it's 16 by 9. And it's consistent no matter how large the screen. So you might have a 26-inch monitor and then a 66-inch monitor at home, or a 70-inch monitor at home, and that ratio is still the same. When you look at what you're seeing on the screen, the width and the height is 16 by 9. And then the standard ratio, which is SD, standard definition television and projectors and slides, the ratio is 4 by 3. Now, that could become a problem later, and I want to reinforce it as we get through the course. When you're planning a presentation, you really want to know where you'll be presenting, because you might find that you develop a presentation at 16 by 9, which we have here. And how can we see what resolution we're at? Well, we can simply click on Design, or I'm sorry, click on View, and if we click on Slide Master, and we're going to cover this again later, there is an option for viewing the slide width and ratios, which right now we're at 16 by 9. And I don't want you to worry about remembering this right now, okay? I just wanted to show you. But here lies another interesting feature of the ribbon that can make it problematic, is that when I selected that option, okay, it took me to an area where I could actually change the template of my presentation. So I'm looking at the slide master, and we'll talk about masters later. And so you might do that, and then you go back to home and you're thinking, well, oh, wait a minute, it's grayed out, and well, there's this problem, and all my features aren't working. What's going on? Well, it's because we've opened a ribbon's more detailed options, and we need to close it so that we can fully edit the presentation. So hopefully that doesn't confuse you, and I know that's a lot to remember, but we'll come back to that later. So we've taken a look at the ribbon and the different features on the ribbon. We're not going to use a whole lot of it today. Today I'm more interested in that you are familiar with the general layout of PowerPoint. Let's stop this video here because we're coming up on about 18 minutes, and I like to keep these videos short. Take a break and then come back to the second video, and we'll continue to talk about the rest of the layout of PowerPoint, including the navigation pane, our slide pane, and the different features that we utilize when we're actually editing a slide.